I'm angry at God. I said, well, it's okay. Be angry. What would you say? And they said, they would say, can I argue with God? I said, sure, of course. It's just an essence, a part of you. And they say something, and then they realize, wow, I didn't think I could be angry at, you know, this supreme being. And I said, well, you are a supreme being. You just stepped into this form.
Welcome to Conversation for the Soul. I'm Linda Christine. Today I speak with Miguel Rodriguez, and Miguel is just such a beautiful, centered, peaceful, and loving man. He shares with us his really interesting and unique awakening journey that happened back in the 80s. And now he is doing journey work. And let me tell you, that's pretty fascinating. I hadn't heard about journey work before, so it was very interesting to find out the whole process of how it works. And it seems like he gets to the bottom of a lot of issues for a lot of people. So I think you're going to enjoy this show. Let me know what you think in the comments, and please like, share, and subscribe. That's how beautiful stories like Miguel's get out there to share with everybody so they can learn and grow and expand. And here we go with our conversation with Miguel. Welcome, Miguel. It's so wonderful to have you here today.
It's a pleasure to be here. It's my first podcast, so it's interesting.
Exciting, exciting. Well, I always like to ask everybody, what led to your awakening, or did you have multiple awakenings? How did everything unfold for you?
Okay. 1980. Was my birthday, and I kind of woke up, and I said, what's changed? For me, something seemed different. I says, and I wasn't sure what was going on, but it was a kind of sense of dread, like something was changing, something was dying and falling away. And I couldn't really explain it. And back in 1980 in Florida, it was a completely different world, and I had arrived in 79. So I really didn't have, sources or friends, or I wasn't into anything, just raising our family. And so I kind of didn't say anything to anybody, not even my wife. I just started jogging a lot, because I said, well, if I'm healthy, I'll be okay. And so that's really started everything. And it wasn't uh till how do I even say that? It wasn't until my birthday on in 1981 that nothing happened. So an entire year went by, and I was sensing this dread that I couldn't share, and when I woke up that morning after my birthday, I said, well, I'm still here. What's here, and then I started my deep dive into pretty much religion. As a Catholic, I wasn't comfortable with it for some reasons. I felt there's something missing, and then I went on and I studied various religions, and went through Christianity, and I became a born again, and that didn't work for me because they seemed like all dogma, and I kept moving through all the different teachings, and Buddhism resonated, but it wasn't really comfortable, and until I found Hinduism probably a year and a half later, and then that felt right, and I said, well, this feels right, but I couldn't share with anybody. I didn't have many friends or family here that was even into this stuff. And so most of them looked at me like I had three heads. Like, what are you doing? But I always had a sense that I was moving in that direction all my life. I didn't know exactly which way, but there was something there, even as a
What,
child.
what was that dread that you were feeling before your birthday? Were you thinking that perhaps you were going to pass, or what
Yeah,
was going on?
yeah, that I didn't know if I was going to pass, that this was the end for me. And it took years to realize that it was really, you know, awakening of the soul. And that was driving me. I mean, I was absorbing literature like I've never had in my life, and I've you know, never had the desire to do that. But it was like I couldn't get enough, until I found something that truly resonated. And I,
So
mhm,
when you landed in Hinduism, how
mhm.
did everything start to unfold after that point?
Well, I finally was able to meet people which had common interests. Finally, I joined a group, a self-realization group in Fort Lauderdale. There were like four of us, and I was able to get some answers. And then again, I just did another deep dive for a year and a half until I decided to become a member of the organization and become a disciple of the teachings. And when I finally received the Kriya Yoga techniques, everything really shifted. It was a huge shift. But I was doing all the other techniques for a year and a half, and then was invited to become a part of the Kriya Yoga teachings. And I was like, whoa. I actually felt that, am I really worthy to receive this higher teaching? And it was weird. And I had a confirmation, a dream, which confirmed that yeah, this is the way. I laugh about this is the way because I think of that Mandalorian thing. This is the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of got it, but it did change my world. It really flipped my world upside down. And years later, like 3 years later, my whole world shifted. I mean, I wound up living alone, because it was strange because the mind, almost like the teachings took my mind out of everything, and I was living in this conscious state and functioning normal. I more efficiently actually than I ever did at my job and at everything. But there was definitely a shift to become more inside, almost like I wanted to become part of that order, and actually applied for it. And they said, no, your karma is done. You have two kids, you have a wife, you have a life. I said, oh, really? And so I functioned as a householder yogi, basically. But what didn't work in my relationship eventually.
In
Because
your personal relationship or in your relationship with the group the yoga group?
no, in my personal, there were things that were shifting in waking up to the truth that was there. It took a long time to recover from what happened, the opening that was so big, because it really took me out of the world.
Describe that opening, because there's a lot of people right now that are in the process of going through this. So share, as much detail as you can, what it felt like
Mm.
for you.
Well, I was 33 at the time, and I realized that I spent over a month, almost 33 days, in this state of awareness, which was beautiful. I mean, nothing. If I were to try to explain what unconditional love is, that would be it. There was everybody was fine with me. My world was good. Everything functioned. I wasn't unhappy. As a matter of fact, I was absorbed in this blissful state. And at the end of the day, I came home and stood with the family, had dinner, and then in the evenings, I just sat and meditated and chanted. And it was, for me, it was normal being in that state. But from my partner at the time, she was not understanding. And my kids didn't, they were young at the time too. So, they were doing their own thing. But for me, it was until something was said about, what are you doing? What are you doing? It was like, yeah, it snapped me back into the world, my reality as a physical being on a planet, you know. And I realized that there was a huge shift. And then mine reacted with like, where have you been? You have been absent, And at that point, I realized, the frustrations that my wife was going through at the time. And she said, well, what are you doing? What is this? I couldn't really explain it.
What brought about that blissful state for you?
And doing the deep kriyas, the kriya technique, really.
Explain that, so because I'm not familiar with it.
Well, a kriya is actually going back inside and withdrawing all of the senses back into the spine. And in doing that, you just become absorbed in the center, and your world functions from a state of pure awareness. Everything, there isn't anything that's impossible. There isn't, it's all just a blissful union, with everything that was around me. But that was my personal experience. And even the people at the little group that I belonged to were like, wow, you've hit something, but that didn't even register when I was in that state. It was just like when I popped back out, I said, oh, where have I been? Where has Miguel, this body, been for 30 odd days? And I went like, whoa. Then I must admit there was a trying to figure that out, and that took a long time. It took years. I mean, I went through separation, and it was difficult, quite difficult, and there was a lot of anger in it, because I said, wait a minute, I've done everything that I was supposed to do, and all of a sudden you were taken back to where I was, 3 years prior, and I went like, oh, all of these studies, all of this stuff. But it was part of the progression for me, and it took years, to finally come to terms with it. I was angry at the world, angry at, the teachings, angry at really God, if you want to say that,
And it was all stemming from, you were doing this perceived good thing, and then your world just kind of crumbles around you, and it's
literally.
like, what the heck?
Yeah, exactly. Then, I had to really, and it took years to understand that it was part of the karma that I had to finally address, that I was unwilling to, or didn't even understand. So I burned up a lot of the karma in 15 years later, that I wound up, being taken into this journey program that the process that I do, that really brought me right back to that moment, when I received those blessings, that bliss. So I fell back into that blissful state, but now I was aware that it was happening. And so then the balance had to begin, Then I realized that, I had to chop these trees down that were still here of karma, and go through all the changes that I did through. And at that point, I was able to, live the dual life, be in the world, but not of it, and had my moments in silence. But I've always been an introvert. So for me, I never really fit in. And even as a kid, it was strange. So yeah, I guess it was going to happen anyway, in spite of me,
How
and
did
that's how I.
you? Oh, go
Mhm.
ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's why I finally decided that, I'm just going to balance my life. Yeah.
Hmm.
What was the question?
Well, I was wondering, how did you identify your karma? Talk a little bit about that.
Uh, well, I realized there were certain things that were desired, and in experiencing certain things that went on in my life, and dropping in, still meditating and still doing that, I realized that, oh, this has got to go away. This is not. Um, and so a lot of things that I guess my job, shifted. I wound up leaving my profession and going into a different industry, and where I was able to live a more balanced life between. And I met the woman that I'm with today, which is really the love of my life. It was different, and I knew that when I met her that it was going to be different. It was like a knowing, and so everything moved in that knowing space. There wasn't a lot of effort to exist at that point. It just flowed naturally. But it took a long time to adjust to it. And like I said, in 2005, when I did get introduced to the journey work, is when I was able to see it more clearly, because I was able to drop back into that space. You know, and it
Well,
still comes and goes.
talk a little bit about the journey work so everybody understands what that is.
Well, I guess I have to share what really got me involved. And there's a series of things that happened that I was trying to run away from it, and it kept following me around. But when I finally had my own personal process done during that time in 2005, I was able to see a part of me that I had left behind in 1984, which I had abandoned. I mean, and it actually showed up as I had abandoned a part of me, and it stayed out there in consciousness, waiting. And when I finally dropped into source state through the journey process, that part of me showed up and says, "You abandoned me. You left me here."
Mm.
And it was, emotional. I mean, I'm feeling it, you know. And it was like, oh, I hadn't realized that, I had left that blissful state to be back in this physical form and living the life out here, and it kind of solidified that, okay, that was the right path, but I needed to do all these other things that uh, I guess mine wanted to do, or karma I needed to burn off. And sometimes it's painful, sometimes it's not. It's joyous, and doing the things you wanted to do in your life, and realize that none of it really leaded anywhere. It was just uh, expressing this desire and burning it off, and it was gone. There was no. So I was always looking for the next hit, whatever that might have been.
What was that piece of you that you left behind, and how
It
did you
was
know?
actually it was actually me at 33 years old that was in that blissful state. And
Hmm.
actually, the words were, "You left me behind." And
Wow.
so through the process, the journey process, I was able to reintegrate that part of me, and it was almost like a part of my whole being was just left there, waiting, you know. And in reintegrating, I was able to, come to a place of peace, because it was this searching that was, overwhelming.
Mm.
But there wasn't anybody that I could really sit and share with. And I didn't go back to the teachings, for years, because I guess in some way I was angry that they took me there and it took me away, and it wasn't, it was almost like, here's the gift and I'm taking it back. Now go do the work. And in doing the work and coming from that space, I was able to have compassion for others that, were going through these stages in their life and moving from into this a dark night of the soul, I guess I would call it, because that's really what it was. But I didn't realize till later on when I was reading Carl Jung, but I said, oh, that's what it was. I didn't realize it, and it was so far back. So everything was a progression, and something like it had to be that way.
And what's the journey work? Is that what you do now,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
explain that?
Well, when I had that experience, I returned. That was on a Saturday that I had the process done on me in this group setting, and it was so overwhelming. I mean, I went home and it was like there was a different person. Even my wife, when I arrived home, she goes, well, "What happened?" It was this bliss had returned.
What did they do to trigger that
Well,
for you?
okay, so and the next day I returned, and I actually was able to come to a place of forgiveness for abandoning that part of me. And that was, so I had to see what was really happening and come to terms with it, forgive myself for abandoning that part of me, because my mind was angry, not my soul. My soul was waiting, but my mind was angry. And it had to come to the understanding. And so when I returned the next day, I says, I don't know what this is, but I'm signing up to do whatever this is, because this is really important. Really, it took 50 years for me to get here, from when I originally was here. And so I went through the entire process of helping people find suppressed cell memories. And a lot of them are very painful memories that a lot of people don't even want to experience, and not only, but coming to a place of healing, but coming to a place of understanding and having compassion for the individuals that may have caused the pain and suffering. And there is no true healing until we can understand what the other individual was feeling and why they put you through something, whatever that might be. Everything is different. It could be your mate at this stage in your life, or it could be a family member, or it could you know sometimes it shows up as somebody in another life or a part of you that existed, if you believe stuff like that. Everybody's different, but I've always believed in reincarnation once I started on the Hindu teachings, and a lot of people who did come to sit with me would open up into that space, and they would say, I don't quite understand what exactly was going on, but I knew I had to go there and heal that part of me. So it because of my prior training with the self-realization work, I was able to access that for a lot of individuals who didn't have any religion of any sort. And so they would open up into this life as uh, one of the things that really, one of the experiences I had with a woman was that she was started to like paint. She was like painting. And as we were going through the different levels, the emotional levels that she was feeling, that allowed us to access that memory. And I said, I don't quite understand. Well, what are you doing? She says, I'm painting. I'm a very good painter. I said, really? So not till we did what we had to do, and in the process, in completion, I said, what was that? And she says, all I could tell you is that I was in the Louvre and I was looking at a painting and I knew that I painted that. And I was a male.
Wow.
And she says, I don't know how to explain that. And I said, well, I I've had similar experiences with other people like that. So I said, yeah, I get it. But that was the point where she was able to move on because she was heartbroken from a relationship in that age, in that lifetime, and it was interesting because she also said, I I knew that I was commissioned to do a painting for one of the royals, and I fell in love with the daughter, and I knew I could never have her. So that pain carried through into this lifetime. So it was the point of access to heal the the inability of her being in relationship, because no relationship could ever compare to it.
Wow. So is this journey work? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with it. Is it? It sounds to me it's a lot like quantum healing hypnosis along those lines. How do
Yeah.
you work with a client? How does that happen to where you uncover this stuff?
Well, it's a mix of different modalities. Like we use NLP, and there's, other things that's we use as we move through the energy, but we're really moving through emotion, which is energy in motion, really. So we move through any emotion, like say, I don't understand, but I have this fear, and I don't know where it's coming from because everything is beautiful in my life, but this fear. And so we move through the energy and access it and allow that suppressed energy to come forward, and as the energy is released and allowed to really dance in life. It's chi, it's life force, it's been suppressed. And as it's released, usually another feeling shows up. And we may drop several levels. Some people drop almost immediately. Some people, depends on their personality types, how one works with them. Because there are people who are very mental, and there are people who are fearing. There are people that don't want to release control, and so one of the trainings modalities from one of the workshops is really understanding how individuals function, what's the programming that they use to live in the world, you know, and that's it's so pivotal to do the work because it allows you to use techniques to allow them to release the resistance. And I've been doing it since 2005, and I can tell you that I can probably count on both of my hands and still have fingers left over of how many men I've worked with. It's just women. And most of my friends are women. It's just that's the way it is. So,
Yeah, there's a lot more women that seem
mhm,
to be more open to
mhm.
this whole awakening process, certainly.
Yeah. Yeah, because men are in their heads. They're men of reason, and women are feeling, and it's hard even to understand how women feel. I understand when they say you don't understand me. I says, yeah, I know I'm a male, but I'm working at it, and over the years I get it. You know, I've seen women who've been in after a breakup or an end of a marriage, a divorce. They struggle being in any other relationship because they were so heartbroken. And a lot of women, the emotion is trapped in the heart center. And a lot of women, that cell memory is trapped in there. So the cell memory and the energy is stuck there. And so it's in this heart space. And a lot of times they develop, sicknesses, or may even lose the left breast because the pain is so intense. And I've worked with individuals like that, and they said, I can move on with my life. I can finally not sabotage my next relationship. Because when they were getting close and attached and they thought it was really going to get serious, that memory would pop back in and says, oh, you know where this is going. You told me to protect you, and we don't want to go there again. We can't feel that pain again. So they stopped picking up the phones, not answering the emails, and they drop back and say, oh, I'm back here. Why can't I get over my old relationship? So in the journey work, we revisit the breakup, and come to an understanding of why it had to happen, because it wasn't going to work, because she was on a path for the spiritual awakening, and that relationship would have not happened. So it had to end in a certain way, but they sabotage every relationship afterwards until they come to a place of forgiveness and understanding. So it's really quite a deep process, and I really wasn't looking for this, but apparently because of the prior work that I did, it fit, because you're really just an instrument for the work to come through. There's nobody here doing anything. It's just the pairing shows up. How many times people knock on my door and I said, what are you doing here? She goes, somebody told me to see you. I said, okay, what is it? What's here? And we move on. A lot of people have family members who've passed, and they were unable to grieve. And we were able to revisit that. And finally they were able to grieve and let go. So to me, it's really important, but the timing is important for the individual before they'll say, okay, I need to see what's going on in my life. Why am I suppressing this stuff? And it's beautiful to see that. So to me, it's a life work, but you can't put a price on it, and I don't feel there should ever be a price for that, to help someone release and heal. And that's my approach. I never really felt it was important to put a price tag on it. I never did. If somebody comes and offers a love offering, I'm fine. And if they don't, I'm fine too. It doesn't matter, because you're healing yourself. You're really waking up, because we're all one. And if the more people are healed, the more, we're able to evolve.
We'll all lift each other up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's such an increase in suicides lately.
Mm-hmm.
Have you dealt with any clients who are suicidal or have loved ones that are? And how do you, what usually comes up around that?
It's funny. A lot of times people who are suicidal don't want to work, don't want to say, I don't want to, there's enough going on in my world. I don't want to feel any of this a lot of times. But if there's a blood relative, usually a parent would be ideal, we work with the parent. And a lot of times it moves the energy, and there's a willingness arises from the individual, say, well, something shifted, and I can't really I don't know where it came from, but oftentimes children who are going into puberty are experiencing a generational pain that's coming through and attaching, because the pain is in consciousness, the energy is in consciousness. And when a family member is getting ready to move on, that conscious memory of somebody in the bloodline is looking to attach somewhere. And if there's a child or a family member that's at that age, it will attach. And then they'll wake up one morning and be really nasty to their parents, because they know innately in consciousness that I'm going to have to carry on this pain of the bloodline. And usually I would work with the parent, and then we sever that bloodline trauma, really, that could be many lifetimes back, and may have been carried, generationally back 3, 4, 5, lifetimes. And that, in working with people, especially individuals that went through World War II, a lot of the pain is still present, that we can never forget. So the energy keeps looking for an exit point. And it comes through the bloodline because it's in the bloodline. Someone finally shows up and says, okay, I came to release this energetic pattern that's been present. And it heals the entire bloodline. It's crazy. It's almost like, what are you talking about? I said, well, yeah, that's how it shows up in my mind's eye. And usually the response is, wow, I didn't know I came to save or to heal this deep root that had nothing to do with me. But I agreed to step into this form to help release that energetic presence.
Now, is it similar with mental illness like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, or is that totally different?
Well, it's part of that. They're usually people who are bipolar, and I know several. I've worked with a couple. Um, they're awake in that consciousness. It's present, and it's here, and everybody is they're trying to self-medicate, and give everybody, or be wind up in a psychiatrist, and they give them medications to help them suppress and shut down. And it's hard to work with somebody on meds, but I've seen grace come through and take over, which is the way it is. So, if they show up and they're willing to sit, then grace steps in and allows us to move through the energy. Ultimately, we never tell people to stop on their medications or anything like that, but gradually they start letting it go and having more of a life. And you don't know. I worked with a bipolar woman. I walked in the house and everybody was screaming and yelling. It was like a crazy house. And I said, I don't know why I'm here, but I'll sit. And, she was able to come to a place where she was quiet. And she says, I've never been so quiet in my life. And so it was an opening into that, yeah, the possibility does exist, and it's crazy. I've had personal experiences of my own, and I don't want to go into details, but still, I know that there's always an emotional component to whatever is going on. So there's an energetic suppression And a lot of times, like I said, it's not yours because you don't feel, why am I feeling this way? I haven't done anything wrong in my life or what, but I'm carrying this. And like I said, sometimes you can work with the parent to help loosen that up and then work with eventually with the individual.
Does
And
it
it's
work the same for adult children? Would you work with the parent as well?
yeah, adult children, and you would work also with children. And children are the most fascinating to work with because they actually can run around and play, and you could do one of these processes, and they'll say, "Yeah, okay," and they'll do this, and they'll run over there and play, and they'll come back, and they'll say, "Yeah, okay," and then you get a call from the parent who goes, "I don't know what you did, but it worked, whatever that is." So, okay. I says, "I don't know what it is. I'm going to try to figure it out, but it works. And if it does, don't fix it. You know,
I feel like there's something that comes through you in this process as well. Like you say grace steps in, but I feel like perhaps your grace,
well,
you hold that energy in space.
I think the most important part of this work is to really not not even think that you're just an empty vessel, and whatever shows up in the moment is like, oh, okay. Because I could sit there sometimes and do part of the work, and there's no response, and there's a sense that, oh, be quiet, just wait, because it's happening, in some way it's happening, just wait. And of course there's a formula to it, how we move down into that space and get into the source. And so sometimes the script, if you want to call it that, um, you have to be a painter. You paint, with colors, and you say, okay, okay, here it is. And something shows up, and usually after we complete and I kind of discuss what went on, they go, oh no, everything was being done. I said, okay, you know, and uh, and they're free. It's beautiful to see. There's a lot of people who, like myself, who grew up in the shadows because we felt like we were you know, the black sheep, or misunderstood or something like that, or our learning disabilities didn't match up with our schooling, and how it was. And those things are really blessings to those who really seek them out and say, okay, here, this is for real. This is who you are, and this is a gift. It's not a problem like so many you know dyslexic and or autistic individuals. They're beautiful souls, and they come with a gift of, because they don't understand the world. And coming into the world, they don't get it because they're beyond the physical realm already, but nobody addresses it that way. You know, what's wrong with you? Let's fix you. How can I fix you? You don't fix anybody. Actually, I can fix you if you let me.
What is the most profound or miraculous journey that you've witnessed?
Oh boy, it's I was up in Saskatoon, up in Canada, and there was well, we used to go up there once a year. I would join the group, and it would be to work with the First Nations. But there happened to be a woman there that was from, like, if I'm not mistaken, Chicago, and she was working with one of the natives there, working, doing the process with them. And I was just, since I had been through the whole training, I was assisting, and so the woman grabbed me by the hand and said, "You need to sit here because she don't want me here. She wants a man here." I said, well, "Okay, whatever." And so, we worked through stuff and did the entire thing. And she said to me, "I have a sister." And said, "You have a sister?" I said, "I don't understand." That was after we had completed. She goes, I have a sister." I said, "I don't quite understand." She goes, "I felt this pain in my heart all my life, and I lost a breast to cancer." And she said, "I have a sister." And she says, "No, in the process, I was told that I have a twin, was separated at birth and given up for adoption." And she went back home and found her sister 50 years later.
Wow.
So that's really, for me, was like, wow, this is such powerful work, that she would have passed and with still this heartache, which affects everything in your life because there's this pain that you can't address. And so stuff like that. And I mean, there are so many, things that if I try to explain to individuals, they go, "There's no way that could ever happen." And I said, "Well, grace is king." Like I say, it's the way in. The way in is in.
So during the journey, whatever you were guiding her through, she came to that realization or heard
Yeah, it
something?
just popped up, like, because she stopped in midstream and said, "I have a sister," and got up and just ran to the door. And I don't understand. And the the people that are leading the group brought it back in and said, "We need to complete because the part of you is still in that space." And so we had to move her back through the energy and bring her back into this realization. And then it was over. And I've had, I've seen people say, "I'm angry at God." I said, "Well, it's okay. You be angry. What would you say?" And and they said, they would say, "Can I argue with God?" I said, "Sure, of course. It's just an essence, a part of you. And they say something, and then they realize, wow, I didn't think I could be angry at, this supreme being." And I said, "Well, you are a supreme being. You just stepped into this form and suppressed it all."
Mm, I love it. I love
And
it. What have you noticed in recent years since 2020, perhaps, that's coming through for a lot of people, coming up and through to be healed and released? Is there any
there's a,
trends?
a willingness to look at different things, to finally find an answer to something that's been here for years and years, but we're unwillingness. Even in my own family members, I've seen people that, religion, no, I don't want any part of that. It's not religion. I'm telling you, we're working with energy. You want to call it whatever you want. But it's just energy flowing.
And what kinds of things are coming up, aside from them being willing to even go through the process, that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
What are there any trends in the types of things that they're releasing?
I see more males showing up. The things they're releasing are pretty basic stuff, childhood traumas that were suppressed and forgotten. We find that most of the trauma is within birth and like age 7 because they're suppressed at that point. But yeah, there's a willingness, to go there, which and a lot of people are having psychotic breakdowns. They're not dealing well with life. they're looking for answers that no one seems to have. And they're all in our neurology, really. They're all present there. So the realization, I mean, the opportunities are endless, really. I've seen so much. And I've seen people who were really end stage, and they came to a place of acceptance and forgiveness for something that was going on in their lives. And they said, I'm ready to go. I'm gone. I don't need to fight anymore. It's strange to even say that, but and then I've seen miraculous healings, from people who were, terminal and come back, because when an energy wraps around a cell memory, a cell, and it stays in that particular space in the body, could be anywhere. It the energetic presence is always there. So even though the cells regenerate in our bodies, usually within a year, all the cells regenerate, the new cell comes in and it's still wrapped around that the contractive energetic energy. And so the cell struggles to be healthy. And so in tapping the cell memory and releasing it, then that stops. So there's a healing that's permanent, you know, you know.
I would imagine, a lot of people probably come as a last ditch effort, kind of like, yeah, I've tried everything. I need something. Do you see a lot of that?
I see a lot of that. A lot of them, they're usually at the end of their rope, and they say, I've tried it all. I've had surgeries, it comes back, and this and that, and I don't know what to do, but I'm willing to try anything. And I says, well, let's give it a go, like they say in England, right?
It's amazing to me. It's not, because I had stage 3 cancer in 2013. So I know why I had it. I figured that out the hard way by having to go through all of it and then losing everything and coming back again. It's just amazing to me how everybody carries so much in the body, and it's so important from a spiritual standpoint to care for the body. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, but even caring for the body, say you fast once a week and you eat the right foods, but there's still a feeling that something is missing, that's will give you full, health, vibrant health, and it'll allow you really to access unconditional love, because everything is conditioned. Love is conditioned. Love is procreation. Let's do this. And but when you heal energetically all of those cells that are not happy, then there's the vibrant health. I at this stage in my life, and I've been around for 7 decades, so I don't feel at all that age, and I may have some of the physical symptoms, the wrinkles and stuff, but I never felt I left at my 30s. I still feel like that, and I'm angry when I feel that something, I'm limited in doing something, and I said, no, that's not real, because there is vibrant life, and doing this work just, really shows up in how I feel, and I don't know what else to do. I don't push it. I sit here and I do what I do when it shows up. And it's difficult. I mean, it can be difficult at times. And I've done talks. I've been to yoga classes and done talks about it. And everybody goes, no, okay, okay, yeah, sounds good, And so I've, come to the realization there, who needs it will show up. knock and the door shall be open, seek and you shall find, all that, and that's how it showed up for me. I mean, I pushed this work away literally and wound up sitting in a chair, and getting the entire hit. And, there's 35 people there and they go, well, I don't get it. I thought, well, I guess, but I did, I got it. I got the hit. And here I am. I don't feel I need to do anything for it. It just shows up as it needs to. But to say that it's easy or simple, or you don't feel the pains of individuals who show up who have been dealing with suffering, but there's a joyous moment when they do awaken to the reality that this is no longer here. I can live a life fully. A lot of times it's all, I only see them once, and I do put a prayer out there that if they do show up, then I shouldn't have to do multiples, but sometimes I do. I mean, I've worked with a woman for a year and a half, almost every week, and it was amazing. And she was my teacher, because all that she went through and was willing to access and release and forgive, amazing traumas, But that's the blessing for me, and just being present to all that, and not letting the ego get in there, because it loves to interfere and say, "Oh, look what you did." No, let's get real.
I love that. I love
And
that.
it makes it easier, because there's really nobody doing anything, and then you don't have to say, well, I need to do this, I need to do that. No, I'm just doing what's here, and so that's my job, whatever that might be.
So after everything you've seen, Miguel, what would be some parting advice you could give people to live a more energetically fulfilled life?
That if there's something, a reoccurring theme or feeling that shows up in their lives, then it's here because, or you wind up in a relationship and leave it, and you're in the same relationship with another individual, or a family member who you've been uncomfortable with. There's something there. There's something there that needs to be looked at and accessed, and feel what's here. A lot of times if you meditate, or if you do some, particular work like that, you do drop inside and feel the feeling, and see where it takes you, because the feeling is going to take you as long as you accept it. If you don't want to feel it, then the suppression is here. You have to feel it and allow it, because it's life force. It wants to breathe just like you do, and then allowing it to express itself fully and be felt, it'll take you where you need to go, the next step.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Miguel, if people would like to reach out to you, how
Mm-hmm.
could they do that?
Well, I really don't have anything set up for it, because that's the way I've been. I have a phone number, and they can contact me.
Can they reach out to you on Facebook, perhaps?
They can with through it's Mike Rodriguez, not Miguel. And the Facebook.
And I'll post that below here for people.
Yeah, and they can, we can sit and talk. And, like I said, I've worked with people across the world, in Australia and everywhere. It doesn't matter. It works anywhere.
And they can just show up at your door too, right?
Yeah. As long as they let me know. It's like, but they have, and we move through that, whatever it is. It's a gift.
Oh, that's beautiful. Miguel, I am so honored today to have this conversation with you. I just love your presence. It's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Alrighty. We'll say goodbye to everybody. And you can
Bye,
stay on
everybody.
afterwards, Miguel. Bye bye.